Tēnā koutou katoa, ko tākoro ko waho ko puhara ki te nui o mata awa, ko ihi tai te moana, ko Waitai te pori, ki ngā painga o tātou I mati nei, ko mātuku ingoa, ko au te manakura o tēnā kua. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Hi everybody and welcome to the Waitai Community Board. If you'd like to join us for our opening karakia. Kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e mea I ana te atakura, e tino e kura, e hohonga, te whanurua. Right, now move to apologies. I have one apology for Tim Baker, who's unable to make it. One of his children is unwell. Any other apologies?
Maybe for early departure.
Alex, maybe potentially for early departure. All right, would someone like to move that those be accepted? Moved by Jackie, seconded by Kelly. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. And now declarations of interest. Alex?
Yeah, I'd just like to declare a perceived declaration of conflict with the presentation of the petition, so I will be withdrawing myself from decision making.
Yeah, and debate.
And debate, yeah. And
voting. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Any other declarations of interest? All right, thank you. Now move to confirmation of previous minutes. Happy to move. All right. Second. Anyway, Joe, all those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. We don't have any public forum presentations, so we'll move to item number 5, which is deputation by appointment by B.B. Fraley and David Collins of the Darlington Residents Association. If you'd like to join us at the end of the table. We have 10 minutes, including questions. The floor is yours.
Kia ora koutou. We actually want to assume that the report that we sent has been read, and actually just ask if you have any questions for us and whether any of the items that we've presented to you have been followed up or where they're up to.
All right. Well, Kelly.
I'll turn the mic on.
Thanks, Phoebe. David. Just in terms of parking around the do you have any thoughts as suggestions as to where might be a good place for park
when we had our public information session down there recently, the suggestion was that if there was a way down to the area to get to the Rupert Place, what was formerly Rupert Place, that would be a decent little car park, or even further up between Glenarm Terrace and the landing would be better. But actually there's still a road, and what's happening to that road, like you can still access that, and the staff do use that to park and to drop stuff off. So is there a possible way that we could continue to use that road and use it for parking? They would be the 3 options I'd be thinking about.
Yeah, because I think something like that would be a good option. It's a bit of a shame that there isn't parking there. Do you know what people are doing currently?
So I'll start, sorry, and I will let you talk eventually. So you either park at quite a distance where the disabled parks are now, down on Gohurst Road, or I encourage people to park on the other side of the bridge, just on Avonside Drive. But it's not great, and if you're not able-bodied, it's still a bit of a walk, and it's uneven ground there, and it's not a great place for parking a lot of people for safety-wise. The cars come in, as you know, quite fast along there, and getting in and out is a bit tricky.
And the disabled parking that's already provided, it's from there to the landing and back again is about a half a kilometre distance for people to have to travel. Parking on the other side of the bridge is usually there's places available, but it's crossing over Gayhurst Road at the bridge, which can be quite dangerous. I've seen some people occasionally parking right at the end of the cycle lane, blocking the cycle lane and partly the footpath to get out and go and use the toilets.
Yeah, I've seen people doing that too.
Yeah.
One final question. Do you think it would be, I mean, would you be interested in if we could ask council staff to investigate an off-road park much closer to the landing, on the landing side, where people don't have to walk hundreds of metres down? Or do you think somewhere off, maybe that Rupert Place, is it called, that little?
Yeah,
Yeah.
cul-de-sac.
Whether there was a kind of parking there and then perhaps a sealed access way down to the landing, you know, which of those do you think might work?
That's probably optimal, is Rupert Place, and then Rupert Place is very close to the landing. It's like there. It's very close by. But I think you mean Glenarm Terrace?
I don't know what I mean.
I think possibly you do mean Glenarm Terrace and a sealed walkway down. It's quite some distance from Glenarm Terrace to the landing. Yeah.
Right, I'm just wondering, before I go to Yanni, have you included this in a long-term plan submission? Right, okay. Well, just because if that was the case, we could use that to help advocate for you. But the board can follow this up, but I just wanted to check. Yanni?
Oh yeah, thank you. Do we know why it didn't have parking when it was designed? I wasn't on the community board at the time, but it was sort of one of the most obvious things I noticed when I went to the opening.
So in the original plan, there was parking at Rupert Place, and we have actually advocated for it not to be included at that time because we assumed that there would be other provision for parking made elsewhere, and the cycleway had just been put in at that point, and the cycleway cuts across Rupert Place. So the intention was to have parking off the bridge, remove the cycleway, and have that parking come straight. People come straight off that bridge into parking, which is making a really complex intersection more complex and removing a safety feature, which is the cycleway. And so that wasn't our preferred option. Do you know what I mean? Like direct access onto Rupert Place?
Yeah, I think there's already a council resolution or a noting provision or an action somewhere when we've made some decisions around this previously to get some work done around safe parking. Because I do agree, like the Avonside Drive area, particularly with the new roadworks and all the stuff that's going to happen, it's really dangerous because it's straight into the river on one side and cars going past on the other.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we can follow up what has happened as a result of previous feedback on the issue, but I think that would be quite useful just to know, because I think it's important to look at both sides of the river. Thank you. And I don't know about the jetty either. Is there any? It did seem odd to me as well that the whole
Landing.
The landing, the way it was sold to us was it was a place where people access the river. So again, does anyone know why they didn't actually do that?
Having been part of the process when that landing was named, because I worked on the regeneration plan, they weren't literal landings. They were kind of figurative landing places for people, was the idea of it. I think it's poorly named.
Not called the figurative landing.
And also, I think that there was an intention to put a jetty there early on, but that it's it's a spawning ground for inanga. So I think they realised they did an assessment, what's it called, an assessment of it, and realised that they couldn't. But that has never been said or made public, and maybe it would be useful. So I'm not saying put a jetty there. I'm saying maybe actually just put a sign up saying why it's called landing when it's not a landing.
Would you? Oh, sorry, final question for me. Would you be open to it having a Mateo name?
Yes. but that's my personal opinion. We haven't discussed that. I don't know what.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the misnomer with it being called the landing, I have seen people in kayaks trying to get out of the river there to access the toilets and almost falling into the river because there's no physical landing.
Do you have any questions? Joe and then Celeste. And we've only got about
Yeah, I'll
2
just make a
minutes.
comment because I remember this when we actually had it in board last time, and we did have concern about it being called a landing and being able to take your kayaks and park your car close by and put your kayak, and they said, but it's not for kayaks.
Mhm.
And they also said because of the infrastructure they put on the road and Gatehouse Road with the cycle lanes and the thing that we weren't going to look at changing that to allow car parking.
Celeste?
This is just a question around, so why wasn't a landing included? I think Joe's touched on it, but I just not completely across the history. Because if there's toilets that people are looking to access, should we be providing some way to people get off?
The intention was that all of the landings would have landings,
Okay.
but when they did this one, they realised that they did an ecological impact assessment along the whole river when they did the regeneration plan, and this area was of ecological significance, and they didn't want to put a landing in because it would impact the ecology of the river at that point. So they could either move the landing or not have a physical landing in the river, and that's the decision was made.
Okay.
All right, that's the, you got
On-site power. Can we please have on-site power?
on-site power. Well, so what the staff recommendation is to receive the correspondence and then to refer the issues to staff for investigation.
Thank you.
And there was something that Yanni raised around around the name that we could also refer. So would you be happy to have that added?
Well, yes, but I also think we do have an opportunity with the work that's going to happen in part of the Cities of Sea halfway through here, that you're going to have a lot of the similar contractors in terms of doing things like car parking and landscaping. So, you know, and maybe that if we could try and tie it in with a little bit of urgency to that project, get a slight scope extension, just as an option when it comes back, I think that would be worth considering.
So you could add a
When we get to the correspondence, we can have that. Or what we do with the
when
correspondence then?
well, I'm just wanting just a note so that when we come to the correspondence on the agenda, which is the next item anyway. Yep. All right. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we will we'll get onto this resolution so that you can go about your evening.
Thank you.
So you see, there's a staff recommendation we can add. So one is about that staff investigate options for either providing signage or changing the name so that the landing isn't confusing. So that the landing with capital letters, or not all capital letters, but you know, capital first letters, is not confusing for the public. At least in a not. And then the fourth one is that staff working on the what's the name of the path again? Cities of Sea major cycle route.
No, it's just a pathway.
Oh, just a pathway. Sorry, pathway. Okay. Pathway include this in when planning.
Yeah, I mean, you might just tie into the redevelopment of Avon Park as well. I don't quite understand how the two projects are.
Yep, that's good. I mean, Avon Park's underway. Someone like to move that?
Sorry, I just answered one further question. Just a clarification, but do we need to get some cultural advice? Like, I'm not quite sure how the board approaches the ripping out or the e-wet or anything like that.
Yes, that will be part of any report that we get, because it's a standing item of any report.
Right, but we should have a process.
Well, there is a process. That's in any report that we get.
Okay, so that'll just happen.
Yeah, quite, yeah, you did just, I'd expect so. All right, are you happy to move that, Jan? Seconded?
Yep.
Well, great. Yeah. All right, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. All right, thank you very much.
Sorry, it was just the point about tying it into the CC pathway / open park. It's already
Oh, but sorry, it's already been put, and the Avon Park's already underway, so,
CDC starting next month.
yeah, CDC, yes.
Yeah, but the parking's been done at Open Park. So,
So, yes,
It's the same stuff.
it's the same, for the board and the public's reassurance, it's the same staff that are taking care of the lot, so we're all right. Okay, next, we just move on to briefings. We have as a standing item, we have it's item number 23, but we'll bring it forward. We have Adam, are you here? Oh, back, hiding in the corner. So, yeah, just a reminder that Adam runs the wastewater treatment plant, and so any issues around insurance and that kind of thing aren't his full focus. Is about how the plant's running and any updates that he has for us.
Certainly. Sweet, is that better? Awesome, brilliant. Cool, thank you very much for having me. I'll try and make this as brief as possible. So I've tried to put as much information into the presentation as possible. I'll run through that, and then there'll be the opportunities for questions at the end, because hopefully I should answer most of the questions that you should come up with as I go through. I've also got a couple of my engineers here as well, just in the corner, Ramsey and Lenka. If you try to space or get them a little bit more involved to get into some detail if we need it.
Well, they're welcome to join you if they like.
Moral support. Just come up, Lenka, or? Yeah, certainly. So this is Ramsey, and this is Lenka. So Ramsey's been with us for a little bit, and Lenka's still new, learning bits and pieces on the site for me. Cool. Okay. Is it left or right?
I think
Yeah, just to touch on.
just want to move the mic towards your mouth a little bit. The mic, yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Sweet. Just to touch on what you said, I cannot provide any briefing. I cannot provide any updates on insurance progress on permanent solution or the engagement with the East project. I've got no information on that, I'm afraid. I am aware that there is a full council meeting on some of those aspects this week. That's all I know. The agenda of what I'll be covering tonight is an update on the actions undertaken under the Odour Management Action Plan, a bit of an update on the ponds. We're anticipating them moving to winter mode. Also, questions that came up last time was around the new fence line that's been installed around the oxidation ponds, so I'll touch into that a little bit more. And as I mentioned, there'll be opportunity for questions at the end. And also, based on what you see here, whether there's any more information you want on other topics, we can dive into next time. Reason why we're here is over the summer there was emittance of odour from the wastewater treatment plant. So we undertook a site investigation with our site staff and found that the odour sources to be intermittent of varying strength from varying sources around the treatment plant. To assist with trying to resolve and reduce where these odours came from, we got a consultant was engaged who had the more specialised equipment and more detailed understanding of how that equipment worked to be on site with us to do some detailed on-site analysis over the past few months. Based on those results, that what they got back to us, we then developed the odour management to mitigate those odour sources. This is almost verbatim from last time, but I'm just going to provide the updates that happened. So they started right at the very front of the plant that's coming in from the reticulation, all the way through to the oxidation pond at the end. No changes on the trade waste. I haven't found anything. That's still the case, so that's good. On the screen room, we've put the temporary system in, and we've been given approval to enhance that temporary system a little bit further. But the new permanent ventilation system, that's put a request into the long-term plan, so that's waiting on that. So we've got a temporary system put in, we've modified it a little bit further, but the full permanent solution, we need to wait for the funding through the plan. In terms of the settlement tanks, they're performing an awful lot better. We went from 7 tanks down to 5, and with the cold and wet weather around, we've now increased that back up to 6. The only thing that's outstanding on that is the need for the improved automatic water spray removal system. And again, that's just awaiting the outcome of the LTP. So as soon as that lands, we'll know more on that one. I can provide the update. What we have done is, if you look at that picture, you can see the new checker plate covers that have been installed, whereas previously it was open gratings. So as the flow came from the primary tanks, it's been dropped into the channel, quite a bit of disturbance, which resulted in aerosols and odour coming from that. We've put those nice new checker plates on, the shiny ones. You can see on the right, there are some existing ones. The temporary secondary treatment process. So this is a big activated sludge plant that we put in. The consultant has been designed. We've given them all the information, all the documentation. They've gone away and they've provided us back with the first optimization report on how to make that system run better until the permanent trickling filter solution replacement has been delivered to us. We saw the first draft of that last week, had a meeting at 2 o'clock this afternoon just to go through some fine details that they had to go back, tweak, review, and then that'll be back with us this week, and then it'll be taken to my team next week for them to work through and implement on site. So that is a work in progress. So yeah, so I want to fall behind myself there. So that's just the plan that they provided to us. The odor control system, quite a bit of extra work in this area. Mainly on the bottom one. So last time I was here, I said we had engaged the contractor and they're about to start. They have now been on site and they finished. So what that involves is the great big excavator pulling up all the old biobed media material, carting that off site, checking the distribution system underneath, and putting the new bark placement in on top.
Did that create any odour when you did that?
There was some localised odour. We were in discussions with ECAN about that, but it was very short-lived. That biobed has 2 biobeds, 1A and 1B. 1A was finished just before the November 21 fire. So by us doing 1B, that biobed is now being fully done. So it should see us do it full years. It is now currently underloaded. It was obviously designed to take all the odour from the trickling filters. That's not there anymore. So the amount of load it's getting is far lower than it was previously. So normally that has an asset life of 5 to 10 years, depending on what's going to it. Given that the load going to it is very low, I anticipate that should last quite a long time. However, we will be monitoring, as you do. The oxidation ponds. This is obviously the amount of odour that's coming from the treatment plant has reduced, and the focus is now moving across to the oxidation ponds. About the 24th to 26th of April last year was when the ponds turned unexpectedly for us to go from summer to winter mode and had that real strong weeks-long odour. So we're watching that a lot at the moment. The contractor has got all 16 aerators up and running on pond 1, so that's all 16 of them, and they've had 100% availability for the past 18 days. So they're running as well as we can. I did get an email on Friday to say that they wanted to come in to do some proactive maintenance on it. So the week commencing the 13th, so that's next week, they'll be taking 1 aerator offline for 20 to 30 minutes for them to go out there in the boat to check something electrical and also to add new grease and just to give it a quick condition check. So they'll be doing that over the week commencing the 13th of May, all 16 of them for about 20 to 30 minutes each. Oxidation ponds, moving from summer to winter mode. We've drafted a standard operating procedure based on what we saw last year and our understanding of how the ponds work. So on the left there, that's our numbering system for the ponds. It starts on the top left, it goes pond 1, pond 2A, 2B, and then across the state highway to go through ponds 3, 4, 5 and 6. So that's the path that it normally takes in summer and also the path that it takes in winter when everything's nicely settled down. What we discovered last year was the majority of the odour came from ponds 2 and 3. So what we've done, and over the So it went in about 2.5 weeks ago. We changed the flows so that we have stopped sending flow through ponds 2A, 2B and 3. So the flow is now going through ponds 1, 4, 5 and 6. What this means is there's reduced retention time within those ponds, 1, 4, 5 and 6, because the flow is going through it, and ponds 2A, 2B and 3. What we've done is we're effectively starving them, because what we discovered last year was the algae stopped off, but then it was still warm enough for the bacteria to carry on trying to find something to eat. So it ate all the dead algae, crashed the dissolved oxygen level in the pond, and then caused it to be odorous. What we've done is we've stopped sending it food 2.5, 3 weeks ago, on the understanding that the algae will drop off, the bacteria will drop off, it'll all die, and it'll do it slowly. And if it does it slowly enough, the dissolved oxygen level should remain high enough for it. So this is the first year we're trying it. So it's just a case of wait and see. We believe it's going to work properly. So that system's all been in and that's been running. The last set of algae results we had was from the first, and they indicated that there was still some algae at the time. However, with the weather changing this week, I anticipate this is the week where it's going to happen. So it's a couple of weeks later than last time. We're monitoring it. Photograph there, just to show what that means in the wheel. So the white circle shows where we are, and that's where the team go out and they lift those weirs. So normally the flow will be going to the right. We've lifted those weirs out. It's now dropping into that channel where those 3 areas are, and then disappearing under those pipes under the state highway. So that's the bypass to allow the flow to bypass 2A, 2B and 3. No real updates on the digesters, other than I know that the tender is about to be released to go out for the work, but that's still quite a long-term project to get through. So physical works is still estimated to start in financial year 25. And the same with the sludge dryer, no update on that one. So in summary of the action plan, we have completed a number of activities, and there's a number of activities ongoing. They're likely to be ongoing for the duration until the permanent solution's been put in. There has been both anecdotal and measurable reduction in the odours from the CWTP over the last week. However, cautious, carrying on the on-site monitoring on-site, and obviously the off-site monitoring community sites will still continue. And the focus has shifted from the CWTP, given that there's picked up a reduction in odours there, and we're now moving across to focus more on the ponds. Sorry. I'm going through this very quickly. The security fence line on the ponds. So I'll go to the second bullet point first. So the big fence on the left with the close mesh and the barbed wire across the top, that's the new fence line that we've put in. And the low fence in front of it, that's the old NZTA fence. So we installed that new fence line in 2023 in response to a security access review following the tragic drowning down at the Gore wastewater treatment plant, which affects all observation ponds across the entire country. This is the type of fence line, just to give you a bit of the L specs. 1.8 metres high, 150 millimetres wooden post that gone in. It's close-knit mesh, which makes it quite difficult to climb over. It's topped with a piece of barbed wire. And around the site, we've got various vehicle pedestrian gates for necessary operational access. So that's what it looks like. So the dark blue and the light blue shows where we've installed the fence line, which is essentially just beyond the pond banks, just beyond the vehicle access that we have all the way around. The security fence line is set back from the NZTA 7-wire fence, and it's on the actual legal CCC NZTA boundary. So that's why we didn't replace the existing 7-wire fence, because it's not on our land. The fence was fully surveyed and is fully on the legal boundary.
Probably also stops tourists from having a bit of a swim in it.
Yes, we have had that quite a bit. The fence line has been aligned as close as possible to the ponds without impacting operational areas. I appreciate this is a slightly strange area in that we've got rural areas, we've got estuary frontages, we've got industrial frontages, and we've got residential frontages as well. We've got the whole caboodle. So what I've tried to do is to have as minimal impact as possible and keep that security fence as close to the operational area as possible. Number of issues. We always were aware when you do anything changes, it is going to have impacts. A strange one, anecdotally, I've had an increase in the number of vehicle accidents in it. So that was the one on the state highway. We've also had 2 more people crash into it over the weekend. We've also had geese stranded on the fence line and the state highway. So just hop back. So where the state highway goes through, we get geese being trapped between the fence line and the state highway. Obviously, you're aware geese are quite big. People don't really want damaging their cars with them, or obviously killing nature. We've also had people cutting the fence line. They see the trapped birds, they go there, they snip it up and pull the fence line to one side to let the geese through. And we've also had rubbish accumulation far higher than previously due to a significant reduction in the gap size. So previously you had 7-wire fence, great big gaps like that, and rubbish that fell off would just blow through and would disappear into our ponds. Obviously the much smaller mesh size captures that. So anecdotally, a number of people that could crash into the fence, I don't really know what to do about that one, so I've just left it. However, the stranded geese on the highway, we have on the photograph on the left-hand side, you can see the red marks at the top, 2 red marks at the top, and the 2 red marks at the bottom left. Those show the location of where we've put additional fencing in. So at the moment, the original fencing was just a 7-wire fence. What we've done is just put chicken wire in, because what a number of geese used to do was come off the paddocks, hit the fence line, they can't basically walk around and follow it to try and get in. This is the first time we've done it. Obviously, we've made that fencing more impermeable for the geese to walk through it, so we can try and keep them on the paddocks or in the tow drains or divert them towards the estuary so they don't disappear down that state highway corridor. We have seen a number of geese on the state highway drop since we've done that. However, the molting season did stop, so this is where the geese molt. They can't fly, they have to walk. So it might just be this coincidence that there's no geese there because they can now fly again. But we'll obviously watch that next year as well. In terms of the rubbish accumulation, we have had our Christchurch wastewater treatment plant landscape maintenance contract to undertake a rubbish collection down there initially just to try and make it look a bit better. However, it's not council's responsibilities at NZTA land, and it's also a significant health and safety risk. Obviously, my contract is used to looking after the hazards associated with the wastewater treatment plant, not the hazards associated with the state highway. Credit to Ramsey for multiple contacts with the NZTA, their contractor and subcontractors going around in a number of circles to try and work out responsibilities in the action. And the best information we've got is that there's a snap of that email on the left, which is NZTA have advised us they're going to address this matter and collect the litter as they do a programmed city highway collection and assure the new fence is included. That's taken so much effort to get that far. But again, we will continue to work with them to try and come to a solution over it as quickly as possible. So I appreciate that's a very, very random thing. It's the opportunity for you to ask questions, and also if you could let us know what topics or bits of interest you're interested in for next ones, really helpful so we can tailor that.
We have quite a few questions for you.
I can imagine.
Just want to ask members to restrict it to operational issues,
please.
And remembering what was said at the beginning. So I have speaking order to Alex, Joe, Celeste, Kelly, Greg, Young. Alex.
My question.
Okay.
Has been answered. Thank you.
All right, Joe.
How much impact on the treatment plant did the geese have? Because I know they flew a lot.
Not a lot. No.
They're causing quite a few issues with other areas around, like in Bexley Domain and South Shore. Is there going to be plans for a cull of the geese?
That's not, so there is another department of council that deals with that individual topic, which is not me. I'm sure we can refer to that question to the right department. In terms of flow, so we have about 2 tons of sewage a second going through, so dilution is the solution to this pollution. So if it does do it, it just gets diluted so quickly it brings us below our resource consent limit for fecals.
Just in case anyone missed that, dilution is the solution to this pollution.
Yeah.
It used to be dilution is the solution to your pollution, which was fine in the good old days when it was organic. That has now changed. So you now get to the stage where there's micro-contaminants in terms of residual pesticides, microplastics and stuff like that. Dilution is not the solution because it disperses in the environment and then it bioaccumulates again. So we have had to sort of change our thinking on that. But yes, but for fecals and duck poo, dilution is the solution.
Right. Oh, that bit doesn't rhyme though. Celeste.
Just very quick points of clarification. Did you say the new fence is 6 metres back from our boundary or it's on our boundary?
It is exactly on our surveyed CCC and ZTA boundary.
And in terms of the city highway program, do you know how often that will, do they specify they didn't give it could be once a year or they didn't say?
Yeah, they didn't say, but sometimes I see the contractor collecting the rubbish.
Okay, well done on getting that much information. It's tricky. Thank you.
We will try and work out what the schedule is. If they'll provide it to us, we can let you know.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks, and thanks to your team, doing an amazing job. Keep our sewage system running. Very, very difficult circumstances. Just in terms of the future, what are your fears this winter? Where could things go wrong?
The treatment plant itself is working as well as it can do. I believe the struggles we had over the summer was due to possibly the El Nino effect, with it being so hot, so dry, the strength of the sewage coming in just so little bit, but so strong. Now that we're in winter, we've, as expected, there's been a significant reduction in what we're recording on our meters in site, and also anecdotally. I'm not saying it's the end of the solution, believe me, I'm not. However, the whole biological system sort of cools down quite as time, and the temperature doesn't support that anaerobic environment quite as quickly, and those production of odours, it's not as hot, so all the biological activity sort of calms down and it sort of goes to a lower level. The ponds are the thing that makes us nervous. Like I say, the first year it was a surprise to us when they flipped, and they flipped so quickly, because we've never had that before, because we've obviously had a trickling filter in place previously, so it wasn't an issue. I am slightly worried about it. We've done the best that we can with diverting it away and trying to starve it off and manage it the best way we can. The next 1, 2, 3 weeks is when we could potentially see that happen.
Do you feel that you have the resources to deal with problems as they arise? I mean, are you getting the support you need?
Operationally, we are doing, but it's the other thing that I can't comment on, that we need to be moving on.
Yeah, okay. Oh, you mean insurance? Yeah, I'm on the insurance subcommittee.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
So-
moving.
Councillor Barber notes. Greg.
You said about going into winter mode for the oxidation ponds.
Yes.
Will you potentially look to bring them back into circulation, those ponds that have been skipped?
Oh yeah. As soon as we see them flip, and as soon as Lenka goes out and discovers that all the algae is gone and the bacterial level of algae is there and the dissolved oxygen levels are settled, we'll be bringing them back in.
And is there an ability to remove certain ponds further down the chain, or is it just that particular corner you can remove?
If you could call this lucky, you could. I spent an awful lot of time and effort when I first started here 7 years ago to alter it so that you can change the flows backwards and forwards between the ponds to control the midge population. If you could vary the quality of the effluent in the ponds, the midges don't like it, so they get used to a dirty environment, and then if you suddenly flush clean water at it, they can't cope, and vice versa. So I'm able to switch all the flows backwards and forwards through 1, 2A, 2B, 3 and 4 quite easily with just a number of slide gates. But it's only by luck that we've got our system now that we put in a while ago. But yeah, to bring a pond back online, as long as I can find the right staff, get them out there with the right equipment, 2-3 hours, it's not a big job.
Right, Yanni.
Thank you. Thank you for the work you're doing on that. It's good to get the update. I'm just looking at our website, and is it possible to kind of get some timeframes for the actions that you've talked about? Because at the moment, even on our timeline and on our public-facing website, there's no understanding of when things will be done. Like, so we've got a list of the actions, but we actually don't know when they're going to be done.
Okay.
And I think it might be quite helpful if we could show that to people so that they could see, you know, things that have been complete, things that have been worked on, and things that are upcoming.
Yeah, certainly we can do that. So some will have ongoing. That'll be on there. Other ones will be subject to funding through the LTP.
Yeah. So the last time the timeline's finished in late 2023. There's been no addition to it.
Sorry, that great big.
Yeah.
Okay,
So just and then the other thing that struck me from your presentation, which is great to see all the work that you're doing, but I'm trying to understand why we're waiting for the LTP when, you know, if we compare it to the stadium, for example, we didn't wait for the LTP, we just got on and committed the funding. So can we get a report to council to commit the funding to do the things that are gonna address the odour issues sooner rather than waiting for another 3 months.
Adam, I think this might be outside of where you're able to comment, am I correct?
I'm happy to comment. So this is a dynamic situation as stuff goes through. It's only as a consequence of getting the odour investigation on site to work out where all the various odour sources were and to come up with what's been done. So it's all relatively new as to what's needed. None of the projects we sort of identified are more than like 3 or 4 months old in terms of working out that they were needed to sort of put them together, to sort of put it in. Normally everything's planned in advance and you know what's coming, so you feed it into your asset management plan and do it that way. With this, it's a case of working out what's going into the LTP and then what can be sort of moved around.
Sorry, I still am sort of struggling to understand the process outside of having a report come to council.
Yeah, if
just go through an LTP when we've got an odour that's being produced that's having an impact,
So
really negative impact on
yeah.
the community.
Can I?
Why can we not get a report to council to commit to funding the things that we know is going to make a difference that you've highlighted today?
Sorry, can I just pull the presentation back up if that's okay? So you go for the screen room. So that's only been identified recently as part of this, but whatever we do in terms of that screen room ties in with the permanent replacement of the trickling filter. So I can't push on that until we know what's happening with the trickling filter, but then it also has to tie in with what we're doing with the LTP. So the temporary measure we put in place satisfies the current issue that we've got. We've identified there's a bigger issue. So if there's a current significant source of mode at the moment, we will be doing something with it.
And there's only so much money you have
There's
to
only
around, right?
do about it, and we've got to tie it into the other projects which are part of the LTP.
As I understand it, because this is public, the design's already been done, completed for the replacement trickling filters. We were told that at F&P last week or the week before. So the design's been complete, so we know what's being proposed. So, but yeah, okay. So basically, in terms of the question that kind of Kelly was asking, putting money to one side, is there anything that we should be doing now that would help address the odours if you had the funding available? And if so, what would it be?
Not in terms of that. No, anything that we can do temporary as quickly as possible to mitigate the odours we are doing. I've not had any pushback for that, but where it ties into a bigger project that goes in, the temporary measure is sufficient at the moment, but it does need to be considered as part of the full permanent solution.
Right, okay. And just at the start, the final question from me is, we were told about things we weren't able to ask about, obviously the insurance, the Eastern project, but there's no mention of sort of health and wellbeing of the local community. Who's looking after that? Who's taking on that responsibility?
My understanding is that's part of the that engagement with the East project.
Right, and bear in mind, that's not your area.
Correct, it's outside my area, so I'd assume it's with that, but
yeah, so that, and we, the board will be getting a briefing about and discussion with staff about that soon. Right, so, all right, thank you everyone, and thank you, Adam and your team, for coming, and yeah, good to meet you too as well. We look forward to seeing you next month.
yeah, so just final summary for me. Thank you very much for the feedback that we get. We are doing our best, as working as hard as we can. The council's never said no to anything that we wanted to put in as quickly as possible to try and do it, and we are aware of the ongoing impacts that we are having on the community. So it's not like we're doing a lot and doing it. We are trying to do it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate it. All right.
Thank you.
Well, the next item we have to.
Are we able to pass any resolutions in response to the briefing or no?
There is a staff recommendation.
I don't seem to have a copy of the report. Is there?
There's no report. It's a verbal report with the presentation. And we're just responding to what we've been. So we can ask questions. I'm not sure we can resolve anything outside what we have been provided other than ask for information. So at the moment, the staff recommendation is that the community board notes information supplied during the briefing. Was there something you wanted to ask for?
Yeah, I was particularly interested And I mean, I think we've asked the staff to put timeframes next to the improvements, so, and make that public facing, which I think would be helpful. But the other thing that I was really interested in was the rubbish and the fencing, because there's also been a long-standing desire to actually get a safer cycle way through there as well. And given that we're trying to address the rubbish, it would seem sensible to just have a bit of an understanding about what the opportunities would be with the fencing, because it clearly
So are you proposing a resolution?
well, I was just wondering if we could get some information back in regards to, obviously we've had some information about the rubbish, but there's also,
Can you propose a resolution then?
okay, notice the information supplied during the briefing, and to ask council staff to provide advice on the possibility of addressing the safety concerns and the rubbish concerns along Dyers Road with regards to cycling.
Specifically,
Link.
after what the advice staff provided, that they're working with NZTA and that they're going to put it on their schedule, what more are we requiring, just so when I'm sending an action to
Yeah, well, I
staff?
think,
Also, like changes to the fencing to deal with the safety, because what I understood, we're having increased cars crashing into the fence. So if you're a cyclist going down there, obviously it's a bit more dangerous.
it's,
And we've got increased rubbish as well.
so it was anecdotally, there's been more crashes. So we don't have data to tell us that it's actually is more crashes. And I think we need a bit more to draw that conclusion. But if we can still ask for information, and I'm happy to support asking for information. They are drawn to NZTA, but I think the community board we've made ourselves pretty clear that we would like to hear back from NZTA.
Or maybe we should just do what we did last time, is maybe invite NZTA to come and talk to the board about Dyers Road and leave it open, and then that way we can have a face-to-face conversation with them, like we did last time.
Just to make it a bit more specific, I think in terms of Yanni's request, could we get more information about the maintenance schedule? Specifically, I think Adam was looking into that, but just to formalise that, because that would be helpful. And also potentially looking at signage for the fence to say, if you've got a problem, call NZTA. Because I think there's a bit of confusion as to the purpose of the fence.
I think
It just
rather than trying to be too overly descriptive about what we may or may not do, if we can have a conversation with NZTA or write to them.
I just think it'd be helpful, since they've been a bit vague, to have some specific questions as well that we want through that one. I'd like to know about signage, for instance.
As a staff provide advice possibility addressing safety concerns and road issues along Dyers Road. So do you want that last bit in a third
You
part?
could just put including maintenance schedule and cyclist safety.
Including maintenance schedule
Yeah,
Just say what the fence is.
and
I don't know that.
cycle safety?
There is a
And
guess.
signage.
Yep. All right.
Just clarification.
Just to clarify, did the council pay for the fence or did NZTA pay for the fence?
Well, it's our fence, like,
It's our fence, so shouldn't we be maintaining
So I think what is confusing is the fence that's damaged is NZTA's fence, and the land in which the letter is collecting is on NZTA land.
it? It's only
Our fence is stopping it. It's everything from their fence to ours that they're responsible for is where the issues are arising.
Yep.
So it's technically an NZTA
Alright.
issue, not a
But you
council.
can see that
I'm
it
just-
can be
just-
classed as our fence.
We don't
as
wanna be
well,
on
so
the
there's
fence on
need to be clarity.
Kelly. So I think, I don't want to get stuck on this fence, so let's, does someone like to move this? Moved by Celeste, seconded by Greg. Right, motion will now be put. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Be on the fence, sorry.
Carried. Abstentions?
No.
No, okay, that's carried. All in favour. All right, thank you. Thanks for that detour. Waitakere Drive, we can just, that's item number 8. Is anybody happy to second that?
Yep.
Happy to second.
Sorry, who moved?
Moved by Jackie, seconded by Joe. And do we have any debate?
I got a question.
You got, yeah, stuff here. All right. Well, in that case, we can have questions.
Yep, go for it.
I'm assuming that this was, came out of the questions from Mr. Harlan, I think it was. I think he was obviously pretty happy with the result on that stretch of road. Could you explain why we didn't look at yellow lines opposite his place and some of the other places on the other side along there, which I think was his specific concern?
I don't recall him necessarily being concerned. I think he's a bit further up, closer to the.
Yeah, I went to his house and visited with him. That's where this all kind of started off.
Yeah.
And he was concerned about the narrowness of the road outside his house when people were parked on the road
Yeah,
side.
so following investigation, that wasn't, we didn't find that that was the case. So the problem is with certain widths of road, we do kind of want an element of parking there because it does kind of create an illusion that the road is slightly narrower. So, and we don't want people speeding more than they already are down that stretch. There's a grass verge. It's not a burnt if people are actually legally able to park on that. So we wouldn't put yellow lines there.
Okay, so the reason that we wouldn't put yellow lines there is to allow people to park sort of off the road to create more road space.
And therefore it wouldn't be kind of as narrow as what you'd assume if there was a curve there.
Fine, that makes sense. Thank you. Cheers.
All right. Any further questions? No? Well, motion will now be put. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. All right. So before we go on to the bit of funding discussion, we'll just adjourn the meeting briefly, and so that we can all grab a drink of water or whatever like that. And I know that everybody seems to be here for that.
We are now
It's on
live.
the agenda, isn't it?
We are now live, so
Yeah.
if you can just be aware that we're now live on the internet, so, so if you're having a side conversation, it will be able to be heard by people all around the world.
And bad jokes.
And yes, including our bad jokes. All right, so now we have a whole bunch of decisions to make around allocating better off funding. Chris, Community Governance Manager, is going to give us a bit of a bigger picture, and then I'll ask if people have questions about, or questions or concerns, you don't have to say which one, about any particular ones of the reports. So we'll see what we can move through pretty quickly, and then we'll see how that goes. But just remember that when we first started talking about this, we agreed that although we didn't have to be, we're going to be tight around allocations per ward. We wanted to be fair across the area. We did want to be fair, and as you will be aware, there is a bit of an imbalance. So we're trying to be fair and reasonable around how we might resolve that, and bearing in mind too that there are other sources of funding potentially. All right, Chris.
If you can follow up the presentation. So just if we can just hop to the next slide, would be great. Love the microphone. Okay, so it'll just be a really quick outline. So as you know, Better Off funding, you've already allocated 30,000, so that's gone towards the Waitai Youth Board, which is in process. So that leaves you with 470,000. The other thing that I really just want to remind the board and the public as well is that council's allocated an extra 200,000 from the metropolitan pot of money to the board area. The delegation sits with me, but obviously it's consultation with the board. So there's 100,000 set aside for New Brighton and also 100,000 for Wolston Eastgate area, with a focus around safety, development, cohesion initiatives. So it's a pretty broad, similar to your Better Off funding. So just to bear in mind, you've got that extra 200,000 essentially. So the project briefs have all been we've had workshops with the board. The staff here have done a great job of pulling together the project briefs for you to consider. And obviously any questions they're here to answer. If you hop to the next slide, Cindy. So that's the breakdown. And I know following this afternoon with the emails, Green Lab is looking to be considered as split across the board area, but that kind of outlines the totals there. And if you hop onto the next slide, Cindy. So that'll just give you a picture of what would be left. So current balance is 470,000. If you adopt all of the staff recommendations, leaves 73,000-ish, plus the 200,000 for those areas. So that's really what I wanted to highlight today. And back to you, Paul.
So any questions about that, Alex?
So can I just clarify, at the moment, we're looking at the shared across wards, and that's the museum and the Green Lab potentially?
Yeah, and the youth board.
And the youth board. Okay.
Yep. Any other questions, Chris? Joe?
Yeah, just when we did our rating pre this, there's been some added on. And I'm just wondering, like, some of the projects that were in there for the rating are not in there anymore.
So nothing would have been taken out from your ratings, with having some that are considered as board wide. You've still got the similar number of projects across the area. Some of them weren't able to be progressed all the way, just because either we didn't have enough information or whether something had changed. So bringing 12 applications to this meeting was a big ask. So we've got as many as we can here. There are other projects.
Yeah, so there's other ones that were initially on the list could be looked at in the future.
So I'll give as an example, I think one of the ones was Smith Street. With that project was tracking along to come to this meeting, but in discussions, there's more work that's needed on that one before it can come to the board. So that's why not everything is here.
Yeah.
Kelly and Yoni.
Yeah, just that one about Smith Street is, would that be far away if it was to come a little later? Have you got any timeline on that?
I don't have a timeline. We're setting up a meeting with the group so that we can just carry on discussions with them. So that's pretty much where we're at. We still need to do some more work with the group before we can bring an application.
Obviously, being the Burwood City Councillor, I'm quite pleased to see that Burwood is getting an opportunity for quite a number of different organisations. Is there? I noticed that Linwood is a bit light with their not as many projects. Did notice this get sorted, or is it the fact that I voted to support the 100k for New Brighton / Coastal and Linwood taken into consideration?
I won't answer that. Of course, we don't. What we've brought you is what we've worked with the board through the workshops. So that's all I can answer in terms of.
Smith Street came out too.
Yeah, so Smith Street's one that we're still carrying on work with, and that was looking at. I think through the workshops it was a decent sum of money, so that's why it looks like it's less. But like I said, it's just a case of some projects have progressed further to be able to come to this stage than others.
So despite the appearance that there's a lot more equity involved than perhaps mine.
Well, you can see you still have funds left to allocate, so this isn't allocating everything.
Cool. All right.
But it's the board's decision how you allocate.
Yeah, and there is, if the board was minded to, there is the potential to say, oh, we could allocate that through the Strengthening Communities Fund, but bearing in mind that everybody should be aware that there are a lot of applications for Strengthening Communities Fund, so it's it's not an easy solution. It just delays the decision until later.
And if I can just, the quickest comment, just because you mentioned strengthening communities, so the advisors are really quickly trying to assess those, but on the very high level, you've received more applications this year than you did last year. So last year was tough, it's going to be tougher this year, so just bear that in mind.
Right, a question from Yanni and then Celeste.
Just, I guess I was concerned that we've got all the individual projects, but we don't have the kind of bigger picture process that we work through to work out where the priorities were. Is there a sort of report that looks at the rankings and the priorities following on from our workshop?
We gave the staff our priorities and then they presented these reports. That's what we asked them to do. Yeah, so but like some of us have got questions on things that were on the list. Obviously, there's other things that have jumped the list, I think, because for whatever reason, the other projects aren't going ahead, but we don't get the full picture of all the things that have been asked for. Well, can you ask some specific questions rather? Yeah, I guess I'm interested for the sake of transparency for those other organisations that have been involved in the process, where there's kind of the board rankings, etc. So and I know like the one that I'm interested in as well was like the Bromley turf that was kind of put forward. So it's really hard to follow through like where that's got to. And I'm not saying that, I mean, I understand there's reasons why it's not in front of us. Can staff address that particular concern?
Yeah, so the original challenge with the Bromley turf was the school's lack of opening hours outside of school hours. So essentially the school closed the gates, locked the gates about, I think it's 30 to 45 minutes after school closes, and they don't open for community outside of that. So at the moment I'm working with the community centre and with Cathy to obviously highlighting that issue, but also looking at how we can get the school on board for opening the gates so that the turf, if the board put the funds in, so it can be used for everyone, not just for school students from school time.
Right, but if we're being asked to allocate a number of projects today and we've still got a number of outstanding ones, is there a list of the outstanding ones and where they're at? So that we kind of know, like I know we've got 73k unallocated, but for example, like I was really keen in the Linwood board to have one, bigger project that got, better off for that particular project, like Smith Street Gardens, but obviously I know it's not here today, but I'm just trying to understand like if we've got a sense of what are the other ones that are in the process before we allocate these individuals, because if we want to make sure that we've got enough funding, we might need to reduce some of the other ones that are here today.
So I guess the only advice that I can give is, which, you know, we've said all along, is it's very much a board-led process, this. So it's not a contestable fund, it's not, community can't apply to this. So what we're working off is what we workshop with the board and what the direction the board have set to progress with. So it's, that's very much how we're working.
And so we asked for reports on these projects, and we've been given reports on these projects. So now we need to decide whether we want to support these projects. Celeste and then Jackie.
I just wondered if we could get some more information about, and very supportive of the project, but the A-Town, which is, we asked for some advice on the Capital Endowment Fund. And when you have projects that are of a significant nature like that, we should also be looking at that. And as part of that, can we look at perhaps partially funding it so it can get underway, but also requesting further information so we're not potentially allocating such a large chunk before we have information about what the need is across all the other projects?
So I guess I'll hop in there just around process, if that's through the chair. So with A-Town, so the Capital Endowment Fund, it's pretty heavily subscribed at the moment, and it's taking time for applications to progress through to be ready to report through to council. So from you know, discussions with our counterparts in Civic, that's why we had the discussion. The board had supported it previously, asked us to look at whether it would be appropriate for Capital Endowment. We've looked at that. The timeline is going to probably delay it quite a bit. So that's why we're putting it forwards through to here. In terms of partially funding it between here and through Capital Endowment, there is risks with that it might not go forward to council because that delegation sits with the unit head. It might also impact on the amount of funding. And I think because they've received a grant from Rata and they've got contractors lined up, it's probably a good, again, it's up to the board to decide if you want to support it, but it's a good contender for better off funding, for one of better wording.
What's the timeline for the Capital Endowment Fund? Because I wasn't clear on what the delay would be, because I would have thought we would have that advice in parallel with this decision in terms of what it would mean if we were to also look for that. Because I think as a board we did discuss how obviously we want to get a reasonable split across the boards, but making sure that we're looking to the metropolitan funds in the first instance. So we're not substituting funding, because then it's not an and, it's an instead of. So we don't want to be just drawing from a limited pot when we should also be looking as to what council should also be supporting. And I think this would be a good project to also get support from council. So I guess the question is, what is the visibility of that request?
So I guess it's been waiting to go forward for Capital Endowment funding for 2-3 months, maybe. And it was put forward at the same time as the Eastern Relationship Project, and that one required a lot of pushing to get it through to council, because there are a number of other projects that are sitting. So the way that the process works is when there's a number of projects, this is my understanding, so it might not be 100%, but number of projects go forward. It's a delegation with the unit head to approve what then progresses through for a report to council. So at the moment, it's in that stage with a number of other projects. So in terms of when they're going to be ready to go, we've asked and pushed, but that timeline is tracking out.
So that's sitting with council, really? Is council?
It's the delegation sits with the head of community support and partnerships.
Right, Jackie, and then Yanni.
I just want to say that there isn't anyone in this group or any of the community groups that are likely to benefit from this fund that have actually applied to it. So in theory, the people who are receiving these funds that we've chosen, that has come and go, we brought all of these projects from our particular backgrounds to be assessed. But I personally have not gone around and assured anyone that they'll get funding from this. So I don't see that any community group should have an expectation of it at this point. Just to follow on from what Yanni was saying.
Well, that's it. I mean,
And
it's now on the agenda, and people will may or may not be hopeful. But I hope nobody has made any promises. Yanni.
So my understanding is that staff have been working with a number of the groups around the expectation of getting better off funding, right?
So I would say no, not that there will be any
Well, not
expectations, but we have to work with, we work with the groups in order to, fulfill our requirements to provide you with a good report. But we don't say that the board are going to support you with.
No, I understand. We obviously made the decision, but you do the work and the hope that you'll get. So when we first got the briefing, there are a whole bunch of staff things that were put up, lighting at parks, for example. And again, that's what I guess I'm struggling with, is that there's been a whole bunch of stuff that we've discussed, but there's no visibility in the report today to understand, because I appreciate a number of those other things have got other processes that we've attached to them, and may not have actually been able to be funded through the Better Off Fund for whatever reason. But
We've had a series of discussions which you were involved in.
yes.
And then, so we have a series of reports which we have to make decisions based on.
Yep. So can I just?
I mean, we can get that information for you, but I don't quite get where you're coming from. I'm sorry.
Because each time you make an individual decision, you reduce the amount that's available to go to other projects.
Yes, that's true.
And unfortunately, with the way that this report is written, most of the projects are seen as taken across the total quantum of allocation. So, instead of seeing the big picture, we only see each individual one against the quantum.
So,
and I think that's a little bit tricky. But anyway, just to get on a specific question.
I know what you mean about that. Yes.
So, in terms of the roof, but the roofing, $200,000 for a roof seems like a lot of money. How are we verifying the cost that's attached to these projects? Like, is there like a quote process that people go through? Do we sense check it against like?
So it's the same as any funding application. We follow a really robust process. So with these, similar with the Actus application, we've seen copies of quotes. We work with the groups to provide you with a quick report. Same as with SCF DRs.
Right. And in terms of the A-Town one, what's interesting too is that the Hornby Community Centre, or the Hornby, I can't remember, the old library, in a similar way, it was transferred to the community, and council has made an endowment fund at very short notice to fund the fixing of the roof and the damage. So have we been given any reason why this hasn't been taken to the council in terms of getting a decision? Because it does seem quite similar in terms of the scenario where we have funded a local group through the endowment fund quite recently for significant contribution to building improvements.
So I've already answered. Yeah, so it's in a queue of a number of other projects, and it has been for the last 2 or 3 months. I don't have any other advice.
Celeste.
Now that we've identified that we need to start prioritising some of the projects in the eastern suburbs, do you think that would likely change the way that this is weighted in terms of not sitting in a queue? Because the eastern priorities workload, the plan, as I understand, that it's finally come to the board, is to look at across our area and going, in terms of the pipeline of work, how do we speed things up? And if there is a need, let's make sure that we address that in a timely manner. So it's not a good start if we can't even get this pushed up through the pipeline.
So if I understand both the councillors properly, you are suggesting that this is a good case for a capital endowment fund, and if we were to decline to fund it through the Better Off funding, that you, and I'm sure along with Councillor Barber, would be willing to push it for a capital endowment fund. Is that correct?
With the caveat, of course, that we'd need to tag funding if, I'd like to say that the project should progress, but in the first instance, I think we should be going to the Metropolitan Fund for big substantial grants. There's other examples that I can draw on across the board that I would say the same for Birding Coastal.
Well, the board could choose that path, but that you can't, you either fund it, or we either fund it now, or we don't, with the hope that we'll fund it later, bearing in mind that comes with a risk. That's the nature of the decision. There's no easy way around it, and I appreciate that there's a gentleman here from A-Town Boxing who'll be feeling quite nervous right now. And bearing in mind that this, as I'm sure everybody will agree, we all very much support A-Town Boxing. It's just we have a limited pool of funding and we want to find the best way of allocating the money that is available to us. Jackie?
I think it's a bit late in the process to be coming and talking about the Capital Endowment Fund for this, when we've actually been talking about it now for months, and that is why the staff went away and prepared the report about funding it. This should have come up right back in the beginning when we first started talking about it, and it should have been said.
To be fair, what happened with A-Town was that there was, it was asked and it did go, but it hasn't progressed because of the competition, and so it's been brought back. So in this particular instance, I think that this is one solution is to fund it now. Yep, so Alex.
I mean, it's not a good option, but potentially for some of these reports, if we're wanting some more staff advice or waiting for something, is there an option to potentially leave it on the table for another decision-making meeting?
There is.
That would probably be
but, you know, as with whomever you're better off to make the decision when you have the decision to make. But if you don't have adequate information, then sure. Kelly, did you?
Yeah, just given that, you know, we still have 70,000 to allocate, and all the projects here are well within the budget that we have available to us today. I don't understand why we wouldn't agree to them, unless there's something else that hasn't been introduced, that somebody's going to introduce that I haven't heard at any stage whatsoever.
With that, so one of the issues that we have is we have another project which is tagged, which we agreed as a board that to go forward for consideration, which is the New Brighton Guardians, which has been tagged with that we've said that we support as a board. And so that will be in the back of some people's minds. And we also, but we do have the fact that we had the $70,000 fallout for Smith Street. So we still will have decisions to make. I guess the issue is that by calculations, there is excluding the extra money, which the 2 pots of $100,000 there's an over allocation to Burwood. And
in this case,
and trying to smooth that out, and how we resolve that is the board's decision, right? Yeah.
For once.
Huh?
For once, there is an over allocation. Can I just ask whether that 100K that's been given to Coastal would help cover the Guardians?
If the board chose to allocate that money, if the community governance managing the delegation over that, but if he is a very democratic man and is working with us, the board could choose to allocate all of that money to the Guardians. So,
is there any way we could seek a indication from the board as to whether that might be acceptable to allay the fears of members who might be looking at some change of mind?
The board has definitely in principle agreed that we would like to support the Guardians, and we did in principle agree that 100,000 would go to the Guardians. Yes, so we've already said that.
Could I just question, that was pending an evaluation?
That was pending an evaluation, which we don't have the final evaluation. So what I'm going to propose that we do is that I'm going to ask if there are any, I'll say, queries about any particular. So we'll find out what we all agree on, and then we can come back to the things that we don't agree on. Is this a process?
No, questions about.
Okay, well, just hold on then. I'm going to go through one at a time. And so this is, I'm not going to take it as either negative or positive, but so I just want to know if we can just put things aside and make decisions on those, and then we can focus on the stuff that might need a bit more work. So just give me an indication. Does anyone have any queries about New Brighton and District's Historical Society and Museum Incorporated?
Just wanting to once again clarify that we're assuming technically it's board wide. It's a bit of a
Oh yeah, well, so that's we had agreed that, yes. So that's So that's split between the wards. So that would be just about, that would be 11,606. No, sorry, wrong one. 86. Yeah, all right. All right.
Sorry, is it the actual project or the quantum funding or both that we're discussing?
We will take, you can ask questions about either of those things.
We do it at this stage as we're going
Yeah.
through.
So I'm just wanting to note, do you want a question about this?
Just a question about the quantum.
Okay, well, that case, that's a question.
Are
the
you
next-
asking us for an indication of support for these?
So what I'm wanting to know is if are there any that we don't have any further discussion about and we just can progress. So I'll come back to each of them in turn.
Sure.
So what are you raising your hand for?
Oh, sorry, just a process thing I just wanted to raise is because I'm a member of the Parklands Football Club, I just want to disclose
Declare a conflict.
declare a conflict.
You're-
So I won't participate
you're-
in that one, even though I don't stand to personally gain from it. I just want to make sure.
Oh, okay, well, you can just have that noted. You're not a member. It's fine, like, my advice is that it's fine, but the Santa Parade, I don't think anyone's going to vote against Santa Parade. All right, the New Brighton Playground and Foreshore. The Green Lab, and so that actually does a lot of work right across the board area.
So can I just talk about the Centre Parade as well?
No,
when
not
it comes
yet.
up?
No,
No, when it comes up.
So given that we have a limited amount of time, if we all support something, I think we can just take that as a good thing, because we currently all support it. So Green Lab, any questions about that? Okay. Clarifying that it's board area wide. So you have a question about it?
Yep.
Okay, we'll come back to it. All Saints Community Facility. All right, Kawaita Rangatahi Mobile Youth Centre. A-Town Boxing, we have questions about that. Pukeko Centre.
Yes.
You've got questions. Wilson Gala. Parklands United.
Yeah.
Questions. Darlington Residents Association. And Actus. All right, so what I'm going to propose is that we move to agree to that the New Brighton, I've got questions about that. So that's item number 10, which is the Christmas Santa Parade. That we move the New Brighton Playground and Foreshore.
I'm going to withdraw my question about the museum.
That we move the All Saints Community Facility. That we move Kawai Rangatahi Mobile Youth Centre. So like 14, and we move so you had a question about Pukeko Centre?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a question about the Centre Parade.
Oh, is it a?
It's a question.
No, sorry. Do you support it?
I support it, but I want to know.
We want to know something.
Yeah.
Okay, well, can we take that off that list, please?
Okay, sorry, and I'm withdrawing my question about the museum, so I support that. So you can-
Okay, so withdrawing. Okay, so can we add the museum
And then take off Santa Parade.
and then take off the Santa Parade?
Okay, so we're block resolving then, so that is
And Actus
9, 11,
and Darlington.
13, 14, 17, 19,
So-
20.
So is there any objection around moving these as a block? So I'll move them from the chair.
Happy to.
Or are you seconding? Okay, I think he beat you just, Kelly. All right. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Right, thank you very much. So,
Yeah, where's the list?
Hard to see what we're voting on.
pardon?
So the ones we just said,
I know, but it's good to have it, like,
okay,
just not on.
The numbers were all up there.
Yeah,
so just to clarify, for right now, number 9,
Can we just get the names so we can write them down?
so the museum,
Museum.
so New Brighton Playground and Foreshore.
Yeah.
All Saints.
Yep.
Waitai Rangatahi Mobile Youth Centre, Wilson Gala, Downtown Residents Association, and ACT.
Right, so we'll come back to the top, which is the Santa Parade. Joe.
Okay, so on the things that were presented, it said the project would be about 7,000 to 10,000 per year over 3 years, and I just want to know why we've taken the higher amount. Like, could we deduct some money off that and give them 7,000 a year instead of 10,000?
I think the initial sevens that were the discrepancy between the two was whether they get sponsorship or not, or can get the funds. Sometimes they just make it work, but I know that last year it cost them 10 grand or thereabouts to run the whole Santa Parade.
Okay, so you.
It would be the higher, yeah.
Each,
Yeah,
okay, thank
absolutely,
you.
yeah.
All right, moved by Jackie, seconded by Alex. I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. All right, so the next one is Greenland, and was Joe. Oh no, yeah. Did you have questions, Matt?
Yeah, with the funding, you've got down SCF application for 64857. Is that proceeding in additional to this?
No, because depending on the outcome of this meeting, I would recommend a decline for that. But it is split across a different ward as well, because the Strophy Communities application is for all of their projects, whereas this application is just for the one that's in the New Brighton Red Zone. So the other projects would still go split to the other boards, whereas we'd say probably for our bit, it's not.
And does this require a lease and license through the Red Zone?
Yes, so they're working with Red Zone staff.
Is there any funding from the TTK?
Not
that would go towards this kind of thing?
Yeah, I spoke to Dave Little. He's been supporting it and working through which site they're going to use.
So there's nothing here that they could get funding through the Red Zone?
Not to my knowledge, no.
So can I just clarify, Emily, sorry. This funding is only for the Red Zone activity.
It's for, moving the container lab to the Red Zone area, yeah.
And
activating that space, teaching.
How does that support relate to the other things that they do?
So they also do workshops at Phillipstown Hub. They've activated and done an extensive amount of work around the Eastern Hub as well. So they've got lots of projects. This particular project is for them to move the container. Because
I'm aware that they do lots of work across the board area.
Yep.
And for that, I was persuaded that it was really a board area project. But is your advice different to that?
The impact would be across the board area, but this particular project is to move.
So it's okay. So that would have an impact across the board area.
Yeah, as with all their projects.
Yeah.
Because they're enhancing knowledge about environment and flooding and drainage, all that kind of stuff.
And then the funding as well. So the other programs like Phillipstown that will carry on being recommended to the appropriate board. So that'll be 5%. But this is very much focused on that program.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Alex.
Another question for Emily. So I guess with the museum, the reason why we said it was board-wide because it complements every other ward as part of that funding. Are you saying that this funding won't complement the work in other wards and it's specifically coastal, or are you saying it's board-wide?
It will complement other wards, certainly, because it's a red zone area which goes across different wards. And you're also teaching the public in general, so right from the about environmental issues and how to
that board-wide books to a greater extent than other projects that we've got potentially.
So I think I'll probably help Emily there. So we don't assess it like that. So all of the better off ones, we don't go, does it benefit? So that's not part of our assessment. We provide the application for the board.
So
how you see it is up to the board.
Right. I mean that. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, if you split it across 3 wards, it's not very much out of each ward's, like 11,666. It's not actually that very much money out of each. So much of a muchness in some ways. Any further questions on this? All right. This would, well, yeah, would somebody like to move it? Moved by Yanni, seconded by Celeste. Motion will now be put. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. All right. So the next one is A-Town boxing. The challenge for this one, of course, is that it is actually quite a lot of money, $84,000. But if we don't, if we don't choose to support it, then there's no guarantee that it will get the money that it needs out of the capital endowment fund.
So we have some questions.
Yes. Yeah. I was just prefacing the discussion. Because there's no motion. Well, nobody's moved it, so there's no debate yet.
Staff recommendation.
You move the staff recommendation. But I'll seek further questions first.
Sure.
But we have a mover. Is somebody wanting to second it? Just seeing what agreed. So further discussion.
Process question.
Process question. Yes.
So with a couple of other decisions we've made tonight in relation to Better Off, we said, are there any other questions that we put it to a vote? Could you ask if there's anyone in favour and anyone against before we put it to a vote for that decision?
No, well, because what I was seeking was to know if there was any further questions.
Yeah.
When it comes, when I put it, then there'll be a vote.
Yeah. So will there be room for a debate this time?
Well, there may well be. Yeah. There will be room for debate. It's just that we haven't had it. Nobody wanted to debate. Right. Questions. Yanni and Celeste.
So can we get, I'm really supportive of this group getting the funding. Obviously, Rata's got a big contribution in. If we don't get the funding sorted soon, they run a risk of losing that as well, which would be a real shame. But is there a way that we can actually, given that we've got a council meeting next week on the 15th of May, present the chairman's report around the endowment fund application so that we can basically get a decision of council next week and basically, and then we'll, so almost like an underwrite from the board today, and then subject to the council decision on the endowment fund. Because to me, it seems crazy. Anyway, that's the question really. Is there a way that we can at least make a recognition of funding it today, subject to giving the endowment fund one more chance next week?
Well, I think if you do that, if I'm a councillor, if it's subject to, then it's just potentially, then there's just like, well, it's going to get funding anyway. Why would we fund it? Hold on. Then alternative is that we leave it lie on the table until the next meeting, and in that way we could choose to allocate the money at the next meeting.
Okay, then can I ask staff for advice on that? Because my understanding from the application is it's quite timely, but it needs funding consideration quite soon. So what would be the implications if we wanted to write on the table?
So this has happened before to the group. They basically had most of the funding pre-COVID and then had to return the funding. Costs blew out, and that's why we're basically in the situation we are now. I guess leading on from what Chris said, there's no guarantee that head of unit will put forward the application to council in time or even at all, given what could, I'm not sure the exact figure that's left in the funds, but there's no guarantee that will be pushed forward to council in any sense. So
I'm happy to push it forward. If I'd known about this, I would have raised it, but I'm happy to talk to the mayor about getting a supplementary report on the agenda and the all I was really wanting to understand is what is the practical implications of a decision not being made today from the board in terms of contractors ready to go, the A-Town group ready to go, the other funding that's been acquired.
I guess that the answer to that depends on the timelines. So, realistically, we're then in an unknown state of when is the funding going to come. So the risk is obviously that if there is no funding secured, we're sitting in waiting, contractors could move on to other work. But I can't directly say these are for sure what the implications will be if it waits, because I don't know when that funding would then therefore be allocated, be that through capital development or through another report back to the next COP. So I'm not sure.
Sorry, when's the next board meeting?
10th of June.
The 8th of June. Okay.
I have to say that I'm minded to support this application because of Rory's advice. But I'm happy to hear further questions. Celeste and then Alex.
I mean, I think it's clear that three councillors here will support the project, so it's not about not supporting the project, and obviously the community board, but it's a question of where the funding in the first instance should be coming from, and I don't think that answer, we've had that answer. My question is probably just sort of repeated what Yanni's asked, but if we got a report back which gave us an indication of, but if we had a deadline saying if we don't know by the 10th of June and we've got money in the pot, then it'll come back to the board for a decision, and obviously the support, then it doesn't mean it won't go ahead. So if we don't have a decision by the 10th of June through the committee board, will that mean the project doesn't go ahead? Like, how critical is it for the next month? Because if we go to council and we push it through the capital endowment fund, we get the funding, then the money's there. We just want to get it one way or the other. So how critical is it before we can?
I guess it's
just a question of timing, really, isn't it?
well, it is, but also without knowing for sure that the funding is secure in any way, I would say it is a risk either way. Because I guess it's that case of it's ifs in that situation, if there's funding remaining. So it'd be a risk to the whole project if we were to wait, because therefore there may not be money left in whatever sense.
So for example, we know there's 70k in the pot, which may not go to the Guardians, for instance. We don't have a decision yet on that. So there is funding in the pot. And not all projects might get approved today. So
I guess that'd be a question for the board then, if that's something that they want to decide. But either way, the work is scheduled for a point in time in the year, but having the money secured is obviously vital to that starting. So as soon as that money's locked away, then that means the project can continue. Until it's locked, then there's nothing can be set in stone with any contractors.
And the final comment would be, we know from other building projects that if we get the capital endowment fund secured, even if the funding isn't available immediately, because it might be, aligned with when it can be released, that still provides security to the project. So whether it's from us or from the capital endowment fund, it has the same impact. So
Alex, and then I'd just like to hear from Councillor Barbara.
Yes, I'm probably going to kill me for this one, but I mean, another option, and here's a question for staff, if councillors were to do a chairman's report of the council meeting, theoretically could the councillor call for an extraordinary meeting if that endowment's not granted in the interest of time for this project?
In terms of the process for capital endowment fund, it's a little different to others. So if councillors were of a mind to try and intervene and change the process, that's one thing. But in terms of where the delegations sit, they sit with the head of our unit. So if a report's going up, it's got to go through there first before it is then considered for capital endowment. So I know in the past the rules around capital endowment have been bent when councillors have intervened and put their own motions forward. That's different. But in terms of us providing a report, we have our own internal deadlines which are passed for any council meeting. We'd have to prepare a report. The unit head also has to approve that we start that report. So there is a process around capital endowment that we have to align with.
Anyway, gotcha. Cool, thank you.
Jackie, and then I'll come back to you, Kevin.
I just want to say I'm in support of actually granting this fund today. I think there's too many risks involved. There's no guarantee that it's going to be going through the capital endowment fund. I understand the nature of building, and it's like any delays in that building could blow costs out further. And I actually feel that this group deserves the surety of knowing today that they're not going to get that fund. It's already been, and they've been through the process. They missed out on doing it last time. there's no guarantee that it's going to get in front of council next week or the week after because of what Chris has said, so,
It's a great debating point, Steve. That's a great debating point. So I'm gonna go to Kelly, and then I'm gonna and
So
if
are we
you-
debating?
do you, or I was gonna, do you have any questions or any information you wish to share with the board before we go to debate, of which you can start because you're the mover?
Yeah, I mean, not really, but I'll say it all.
Okay, I just, because there is obviously your council colleagues have slightly different perspective.
Sure.
Yeah, and I thought that you.
But well, yeah, I mean,
it's one of the issues. Like we don't because we're not getting a briefing so much as we're getting reports and information, and then I just want to make sure that we all have the same information. And it sounds like we're at that point. So so now we're going to move into debate.
yeah, okay, well, look, I'd ask you all to support this. I think it's incredibly important. I totally support what A-Town do. They're such an inspiring organisation. And if we can't support groups like A-Town, then I don't know what we're doing. I mean, A-Town, Aranui, they're right in the heart of the community. They're a stone's throw from Actors. They need our support. I feel like we've got to do something. I mean, they literally change people's lives. They get them involved in fitness, they teach them discipline, they teach them respect. They learn how to box. Now, the world doesn't need better boxers, but the world needs better men and women. And these people take young men and women and turn them into something. And they learn a lot about respect. One of their boxers is doing incredibly well, as a beacon for the community. The staff that run the organisation are selfless, put so much into it. You asked us to take our priorities for Burwood, and this is one of the ones that we wanted to support. I'm very supportive of anything that's going on in other wards. I was totally happy to see Coastal Ward and New Brighton get 2 million in the Canterbury Earthquake Appeal Trust. I wanted to be on that board to see that money spent wisely. I totally supported Celeste and Yanni's motion to get 100K for Coastal and Linwood Ward. Didn't ask for Burwood at all. We didn't have the need for it. And so there are times when you need to step up and be counted. And I think this is one of those times. I think this is not political, this is about doing the right thing. It is a risk to wait, and I think we should act now and support these guys. We want to support the poor and the disenfranchised. Well, here's an opportunity. Let's go in. It is a staff recommendation. And in this case, I agree with staff. So yeah, I'd ask you to support it.
Thanks, Kelly.
Yeah, a little bit quicker than Kelly, but a couple of things I look at is this is a resource currently that's underused. They can't use some of the facility because of the roof. By opening it up, they can get more people through, like Kelly said, that can make a difference in their lives, not just in their lives, but their families' lives and people around them as well. Because some of those people at times really need help and guidance, and they provide that. Yes, they have funding through other opportunities and they've lost that funding before. I'd hate to see that lost again. And we know the costs go up, they keep going up. And if it doesn't go through now, potentially if it misses a capital endowment and we spend it somewhere else, the cost will go up and they'll come back and ask for more in the future. Too many times projects get put off and they don't get spent on the times when we can do them and do them right the first time. So I'm really supportive of it to be done and be done properly now so it can make a difference going forward.
And Yanni, if you're going to speak in favour, then when you're finished, I will put it. But if you're speaking against, I'll take on speakers. Yanni.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to wait for the endowment report and formally to load, but it's quite slow. But just to make the point, like this, to me, this isn't about whether we support this project or not. It's actually about getting equity into the east around who's funding what. And it seems inherently sensible to me that we would try and maximise the amount of money going into our communities because we know that we have a much higher need than many other communities in the city. One of the things I find really sad is that, we have one board meeting a month now, and because of holidays and whatever, the next board meeting is not for 5 to 6 weeks away. And I can't quite understand why we wouldn't, this is one of the concerns that was raised at the time, is where we've got some important decisions to make, why we couldn't just have a meeting on the 16th of May, just a short special meeting, following on from a council decision around the endowment fund to allocate this money. But it sounds like people just want to approve it today. And I'm certainly not going to be voting against supporting A-Town boxing, but it does seem to me frustrating that no one elevated the fact that this has been put into the process with the councillors to be able to get progress on it ahead of the decision meeting today. If I'd known about this, even a few weeks ago, I would have absolutely been trying to get it in front of council in terms of a decision so that we could have had more certainty. But I have no doubt about the great work that this A-Town boxing does. As someone who went through a charity boxing match and went to Woolston boxing and got trained up and saw the impact that it has in the local community, particularly with our young people, I have no doubt that they do outstanding work, and I'm really happy to support it. I just wish as a board we could get a little bit more strategic around maximising the money coming into our community, particularly when we've got an endowment fund that funded something very, very similar in Hornby just a few weeks ago.
Is that in favour or against?
I
The speech is pretty clear.
so I think that was in favour. So I'm going to
Can I call for a division?
if you would like to. Are you going?
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant.
All right. Well, I'm going to put that to a vote now. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Never mind.
Carried.
I vote my call for a division.
Well, yeah.
Called division.
All right.
Please call for it.
Yeah, you've already called for it. Yanni's right. I think that was a point of order.
I think you're a vote for point of order.
Huh?
I think you're a vote for point of order.
No, Yanni made a point of order without saying point of order, and I am ruling that the division will need to be put, but it's easy for staff to do because it was all of us.
Okay.
But it's just that you already called the division. No, you can't call.
Good to know. Could I just
It's not.
process question?
Well, hold on.
Okay.
So if you call for a division and then for whatever reason you change your mind, then you can't revoke that. It just.
Cool.
Yeah.
Question for Chris. Process question. So for us to call a division, it has to be before the vote. Is that correct?
No.
So we can call a division after that.
There you go.
Last year we changed that.
Well, that's good. Although I would say that to members, calling a division should be a rare occurrence. Anyway, okay, so we've approved that. So that the next one we had questions about, so the Pukekiko Centre. Your question? Yeah.
Thank you so much, really appreciate it.
Thank you. No problem.
Yeah, this sort of relates to both the Pukekiko Centre and the Parklands United because it does answer a few months. So my understanding is that there's 30k for an activator for Pukekiko Centre and 30k for an activator for Parklands United. My first question is the activator in addition to the activator that they've got at the Pukekiko Centre now, or is it to fund another year or something of his wages? And I don't see the benefit of having two activators in the same space, pretty much down the same street, when it costs $30,000. So do you have any perspectives on the funding decisions in relation to one another? Because obviously the report provides advice based on the decision, but if you didn't take into account the other activator as well, could you just provide a bit of advice on that?
Yeah,
Bit of a long question.
that's all right. So with the Pukekiko Centre, they have Tommy, who's been on board for a while. So that is to fund his role, essentially, with doing the activations within that side. And then with the Parklands United is that they have recently hired operations general manager. Has been on for 3 months, and that is he's got capacity to be able to do activations within the Parklands Centre. So that is to then fund some of his role.
So he's currently employed.
Yeah.
And this extra funding would allow for more time per week?
So he's currently employed full-time, but it was only for a certain amount of time. So they are looking for funding for the next 6 months.
That's Parklands United.
Yes, Parklands United. So to fund him for the next 6 months to be able to do activations to see how it goes.
Celeste.
this is a similar question to the A-Town. Is this something that is time critical? Because obviously every decision we're making today does mean we can't make decisions in the future for other worthwhile projects that we haven't had the opportunity to look at as a board. So if we lay this on the table for the next meeting, will that affect their ability for Partners United to deliver what they're kind of able to do in the next month?
No, it wouldn't affect it, as long as it could be discussed at the next meeting.
So we could potentially bring this back to the board next month.
They have also gone through Strengthening Communities Fund, so I guess just to have that in your head, that I've applied for the same thing.
Question? Is that your questions? Alex?
So in terms of the work that both the activators will be doing, I guess my concern is that you've got two activators that might be serving the same space, and potentially just doing each other's roles almost. So not for the specific venue, but the groups that they're catering for are probably pretty similar, same age groups, same area. So, I mean, everyone knows Parklands United is like 1 minute walk from the Waitai Centre. So I guess that's my concern with this decision, is if we're putting 2 lots of $30,000 into an activator for Parklands, why not just put it into one? Do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, I guess it takes, so with the new role coming on board with Parklands United, it takes time to build those relationships, to be able to work together to, I guess, bring in the same activities, activations and all of that. It's not something that can happen overnight and say, here's 60,000, share it, do it together, because they both do completely different things, essentially. With Parklands United, they have a focus on the sports side. Pukiko is more, I guess, active recreation with a little bit of sports, but it's more active recreation. I do, understand that they are 1 minute down the road from one another, but like I said, it does take a while to form those relationships, ideas, to be able to. Yes.
Thank you.
Greg and then Joe.
I know previously when Tom presented to us, he was pretty much at capacity for what he could do in his role. Has that come into part of it, why Parklands United are looking to add activation into that space at all? Or is...
No. So with the, I guess, the Pukiko Centre, they are wanting to run more activations, kind of what similar to what they've been doing. So it wouldn't put Tom's role at too much capacity, Tom's role. With the Parklands United, it has been identified that the centre is not utilised enough, and we've seen figures around that from our facilities manager. So that's where the idea came about of, we've got someone there 40 hours a week, how can we activate that space and bring more people into that space?
Okay, so it's keeping going the work that Tom's been doing,
yes,
and then bringing in making another space work more efficiently.
Yeah.
My understanding from Parklands United as well is that they kind of got to a point where those sports groups that they umbrella have got to a point where they need someone now overseeing them. They can do so much more if they have that role kind of overseeing them and exploring what other opportunities there are in the community, like working with the Eco Centre. But it's that tipping point where they've got to that big kind of state where it's actually needs someone full time to kind of just push them over the edge and make those changes happen.
Aren't they already full time though?
They're already full time, but like Taylor said, it's got a certain amount of funding for like to pilot it. I guess it's to extend that.
Sorry. No, you already answered the question. Joe, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So you said that the Parklands, which one was it? The Parklands group have applied for an SDE funding.
Yeah.
It's for the same amount?
Yes, for a bit more.
Okay, and what about the Eco Centre? Have they applied for that same funding through there?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions? All right, so I think we should move to debate. Does anybody want to move the Pukiko Centre? Moved by Celeste, seconded by Greg. Any debate?
I just want to sort of say that it's really great to see one of our new community spaces being really well activated, and I think they've sort of set the bar in terms of an organisation that's really well run, and what they say they do, they deliver on, and in terms of meeting community needs. There's been a big need in Parklands for a long time, and it's great to see that an organisation which is an amalgamation of different clubs and interests have come together and really figured out how to work together and deliver a great space which delivers for the local community, school and different groups. So making sure that we keep supporting those groups that are already doing well to continue, I think is key. So I'm quite keen to support this one today.
Kelly?
Yeah, I agree with Donald Duck. Yeah, it wasn't so long ago that there was a lot of youth issues in Parklands, and I'm really happy to support anything that looks to activate the youth of the Parklands area. You know, Parklands is is a big family area. They don't get an awful lot of resource, and then we've got a group like the Pukeko Centre who basically come out of nothing and want to do something in their community, and we should support them. I see them very much like A-Town, able to change lives, given the funding and the opportunities. So happy to support anything to do with it.
Yeah. Unless somebody's going to speak against, I'm going to put it, given that we're running low on time and we have a very important playground to discuss. So motion will now be put. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Right, thank you. And the last one is.
No, those with no parking.
No, this is Vicky Garcia. It's not like this, you know.
But it's kind of the same, isn't it?
No, it's two different motions.
See you later. So Parklands United, yeah, I mean, one course of action would be to leave this to lie on the table. And we could have that, because there are, we have some more stuff, better funding stuff that we will need to discuss. But that's just a suggestion.
Could I move that we lie it on the table?
You can. It's a procedural motion, so it now needs to be discussed. Do we have a seconder for that motion?
Yes, I'll second that.
Okay, that's seconded by that. So all that means is, so has provided us the advice that as long as the decision was made by the next meeting, it wouldn't have any effect. So, and because of that, I'm happy to support that too. Do you have some advice for us?
Not so much advice, but is there anything that the board needs to bring the report back? Is there anything that is missing for the next meeting?
Yeah,
That's what we're
for me, the information is how that activator would work in relation to the Pukeko Centre and whether or not there is a need for two activators in the same space doing fairly similar work. I didn't see enough of that in the report to make a decision.
Yeah, I mean, to provide as much information as she was able to provide at the time. But I think we could discuss that offline. So Joe.
Yeah, I think there is a difference there with the sports club, that umbrella under the Parklands sports side, but I'm just very curious to know the strengthened community. Is that coming to our next meeting, or is it going to be further away?
July. It'll be its own special meeting.
And that's only a limited pot.
Yeah, with massively oversubscribed.
Yeah,
okay. All right. So does anyone want to speak against leaving this to lie on the table? No. Motion will be put. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And Yanni is abstained. Oh, you stood back, right. Okay, so that will come back to our next meeting. So that's, I think, all of our things. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, staff. We know that you worked incredibly hard. And I apologise if you had already answered some of the questions we asked, but we do miss things and do appreciate your work. All right, so now if we will come to the moment that we've all been waiting for, the Parklands, no, not the Parklands, sorry, a petition. So Alex, if you'd like to go to the end of the table.
Yes.
Now, this is you have 5 minutes plus question.
From when I start talking.
Huh?
From when I start talking.
Well, from when I say something really, but from when you start talking will be all right. So yes, from when you start talking. And yeah, so you are welcome to go for it.
Wonderful. Obviously, I'm sitting on the other side of the table, don't do this often, but I thought I'd just highlight the background of the Thompson Park Playground, why we're presenting this petition to the board, and the concerns that the community have. I've got a clicky thing. Sweet. Is there a laser as well? Oh, marvellous. So the Thompson Park Playground was built in the 70s, and it's been an East Side staple for generations. It's a destination for walks that's brought people in from across town, from Rolleston, from Kaiapoi, and from other people, from other areas across New Zealand. And we saw that when we put this design out to the public. I'd just like to highlight the new design here. You've all seen this design, but I'll just put it up on the screen quickly and just highlight a couple of points. So those swings in there now have been put there to make it look like the new design is slightly bigger than what it really is. So that red design is the footprint of the new playground, which is significantly smaller than the previous fort. So the concerns that we've had and that have been raised with me and other elected members throughout this process is the significant decrease in footprint of the playground. The fact that the playground's not like for like in terms of capacity, the drastically reduced double slide. So I'll just go back to the last page. That there is a replacement for the metal one there. So it would look like two of those essentially. There's no tunnels, and essentially it doesn't cater for the original age groups as well. The concerns that have been raised with me are that the holiday programs can't utilise the new design. It's used by community organisations like Youth Alive Trust, Eastern Sport and Rec, Rāwhiti Oscar, who take their students, their kids, onto the playground because they can play with them and actively look after them. And they can do that because there's such a large number and such a big footprint. Their concern is that they won't be able to do that anymore. The concerns I've had from the public is that because it's a smaller playground, it won't bring people in anymore. People aren't likely to stop by the fish and chip shop down the road and spend money, go to a coffee shop in New Brighton before they go to the tunnel, and there's really big concerns about that. The other concerns are that there's less room, so less kids can play on it. Parents can't play with their children anymore because it's so much smaller, and that there's less developmental options. So staff say that it's like for like because of that number of amenities that are in the playgrounds, but comparing noughts and crosses ball with a tunnel or a massive slide is not the same, and the capacity is drastically smaller. So I launched a Save Our Playground petition to address these concerns. I asked community organisations to co-sign, and we launched this on Wednesday, the 10th of April. Overnight, it gained over 200 signatures, and there's been significant media attention due to local concerns. I've just got some really important stats here. Just want to clarify that I wrote the slide before we got the final confirmation of signatures. So it's 1,458, not 1,500 signatures. We, just a really quick half an hour look on Facebook, found over 1,660 comments specifically referencing the new playground design and their disappointment in that. That's across 4 Facebook pages. We didn't get consulted on this, neither did the community. So this has been their avenue of complaining or raising their concerns. There have been 3-star media videos, 2 Pegasus Post articles, a Radio New Zealand article, and the petition was actually on the Radio New Zealand news bulletins in every town across New Zealand. It goes to show that there is very strong public support to make sure that this playground is fit for purpose and meets the requirements of the community. And it's safe to say that people across the country are watching this decision today. So the ask is that the board receives a petition regarding Thompson Park and request that park staff work with the board to create a larger footprint for the replacement playground to accommodate an additional custom module in addition to those already purchased. This means that the new design, and when staff come back to work with the board, won't slow down what's already planned for that park. It also requests that staff prepare a report with options for funding with the additional module, because I'd expect that to come alongside that. These options include the reordering of playground renewals within the coastal ward, meaning that if there's a playground renewal that we can delay by 2 years, that doesn't impact on the safety of our community or the effect of people playing on the playgrounds, and we can move some of that money forward. So it's not taken away, it's just swapping it around like we would in a long-term plan or annual plan process. The second part of that is that the advice also includes a schedule of renewals for the local place-based renewal budget in the coastal ward. The amount of the year sorry, I'm just going to clarify that. The amount allocated and the year allocated as well. I met with staff a couple of weeks ago and was assured that this information will be provided to us by this meeting, and they haven't come to meet with us on that. But that's my time, so questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
So a question of staff. Are we able, I understand we can receive a petition and call for a report. Are we able to make additional resolutions as well?
Regarding
the petition?
No, hold on a second. I just need to clarify. We are able to make a resolution regarding the petition and about this matter specifically. But I don't think that there are, apart from that, no, is why.
That depends what I.
So normally when we receive a petition at council, we're not able to make decisions. We have to actually receive a report at another meeting to then make the decisions. I'm supportive of the resolutions. I just want to check that we can do that because it is different to the process I've had.
We staff and advisor say we can do this.
Okay.
So all we're doing is asking for a report to provide options. Like there's no.
Sorry, it says request part staff work with the board to create a larger footprint or replacement playground to accommodate.
Yeah, that's what
So I mean, I'm happy, but you know, because if we need to change our policy around renewals and replacements too, to actually engage and consult, I would like to move that.
Well, no, I don't like. We can't do that, but we can do this. Any questions of staff, right?
Question. I'm interested because I was asked around metropolitan funding, and that's always my first question. Are we going to be looking at, rather than just limiting ourselves to the coastal ward, because there might not be a program of substitution that would be applicable, is that something we can look at? So would we?
I've got the answer to that. Yes.
Would we also look at extending that to more applicable, other applicable area? So widening out the scope. And the second question would be, obviously there's a lot of support for replacement of the playground since people come in from Rolleston. Do we see, is there a breakdown of where people, what areas people supporting through the petition?
In terms of the petition, I can say that there's been over 6 towns, and there are people that had told me that they use this playground and they're really disappointed that it's going. RNZ also really picked up on it, which shows that they had quite a lot of feedback.
So it's a citywide.
It's a citywide.
In which case it's probably broadening that to beyond coastal where a substitution might be.
So to answer your question, the petition organisations and myself wouldn't be supportive of that, but once again, it is your decision, not mine. The reason for that is we don't want to take away from any other playgrounds and other wards across the city. In terms of the emergency response fund, which is being used to renew the Thompson Park playground, there's no more money in that. Essentially, there's no more money we can allocate from that emergency response. I, nor would the people that signed or co-signed the petition, would want to see other playgrounds in other parts of the city be delayed for our playground. We think it's our responsibility as the coastal ward to fund this and to ensure that our playgrounds fit for purpose out of our own capacity and ability.
So this is a question.
Yeah, this is actually, did you consider the fact that the relative downsizing of the playground might be because now we have much bigger playgrounds like in the city, like Margaret Mahy, haven't finished yet. And the way that QE2 was downsized so that the new Paracure would be the city's pool. Do you know what I mean? That sort of centralisation rather than decentralisation. Any thoughts around that?
I questioned staff on that when I met with them, and it all came down to funding. The only reason why the playground is smaller than what it plans to be is because it's coming out of that emergency discretionary renewal budget. There is no more additional money to make it bigger because it's a module type order. They can't add additional money unless they can't make it bigger unless they put more money into those modules. If they were to do a community-led design, which was significantly bigger, that would also cost more money. So all it comes down to is the money, which is why the petition asks the board and the coastal board specifically to fund it out of its own options, essentially.
And do you have a sort of just a vague idea of the content that would be required to?
Yeah, so the module that's in there right now is $80,000. And then it's, I think, about $30,000 to install. Essentially, if we were wanting to pull back money from other renewal budgets or other sources, which is what staff can provide us a report on, probably just an additional 110,000. That I'd also like to note that staff have told us that there's money for Thompson Park's renewal in the future. So potentially it could be swapping. That came into an email to our board as well. So I wouldn't want this money to come out of anywhere. It's just essentially swapping it around. But there are other avenues that if staff said there are other ways to fund it, like strengthening communities or discretionary response fund, not strengthening communities, sorry, just discretionary response fund, that's the board can discuss that when it comes to us. All I'm asking for at the moment is that we can get that report with funding options.
So I'm going to take Celeste's question and then we'll move to debate. Because we staff, as I've said before, that there is a collective agreement and we really need them to be able to leave by 7 o'clock. And they have also, bearing in mind, they've also put in a lot of work into these reports. So what I am going to, I'm happy to move the this resolution here, and Jackie's happy to second it. So it'll be on the table. But Celeste,
it's just a point of clarification. I understand the whole substitution with the coastal board, but what I'm not clear on is are there metropolitan pots of funding we can also be looking at? Because I don't recall us as a board requesting that information. So wouldn't it make sense to also consider that if we're getting a list of funding options, rather than narrowing ourselves to a substitution when there could be a renewal pot that we haven't got visibility over? I mean, we're only used to hearing it verbally, but it would be good to get a written confirmation there is no metropolitan funding available.
Yes, staff have advised me, but I know that doesn't help your decision now because you've gone there. But staff have advised me there's essentially no money from metropolitan funds to fund this playground. The other sources of renewals, their budget's also been slashed, and that was without council's discretion, is my understanding as well. So that's another question and concern that I have. But to answer your question, there's no metropolitan funding available for other playgrounds for this, is what staff have advised.
So, and as a final supplementary start to that is, if there is money being slashed, it would be good for us to know that, because when we go to vote on the long-term plan, we might want to include funding for a project like this as part of that. So therefore, getting the information now would be helpful.
I can forward that to the board.
But
and
from
your staff.
But yeah, as part of the report that's coming to us, I'd like some visibility over the playground budget.
so no, I'm not taking any more questions. The report so request staff prepare a report with options for funding additional model, and that includes, but it's not limited to, reordering a playground. So what I mean is that we will try and get all the options that we can if there are options, and our staff are aware of that.
As long as that comes back, because we often ask for information which doesn't come back.
Yeah. I'd be happy to have. So not going to amend it now that it's on the table. That just a noting provision that the board wants us the options thoroughly investigated.
That would be helpful, because I've noticed there's a few playgrounds that have gone missing from budget, so we just want visibility.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know when I say the action staff.
Yeah, so there'll be a note incorporated with the action of staff. So now we'll move into debate. All I'm going to say is that I always commend elected members for taking initiative and using the tools available for them for getting things onto the agenda and using the council processes in the petition. Like a notice of motion is one of them. So commend you, Alex, for your hard work on this community issue. and very happy to support this. But I will note that we have a variety of things that we need to consider when deciding how we might enable the funding of this playground. Yeah, with that, I'm happy to go to Yanni.
Cool. Thank you. I mean, I just have a process question, so but I know you don't want any more questions. It's like we need to receive the petition, and there's nothing in here. There's no resolution to actually receive the petition. So I'm wondering who's receiving it.
Are you moving an amendment?
Well, I'm happy to move an additional resolution. Or whatever
How about Matt? Jackie and I are happy to incorporate if.
So,
we have number one. Hold on, please. I'm just taking what you've said.
Okay, cool.
That the board receives the petition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just to be clear, like Alex needs to present it to someone. So is there
I've done that digitally.
Okay, cool. So
yeah, it's been and the wonderful world we live in, it's been presented digitally. All right. Thank you for noting.
So just to speak to it, I mean, I totally agree. Like we should actually engage and consult our community. I do commend Alex. Like it's great to see the engagement that he's done in the local community around the playground. I do think it raises a question of like looking at the process and the policy that we have as a board. There have been other projects that we haven't engaged the community on, most recently Linwood Park, for example. But there's also been Bromley Playground, where I know the community there was really keen to be much more engaged in the replacement of it. And I think the key thing is that people actually really love playgrounds and they do want to be involved. And the one concern I have with the resolutions is that it talks about staff working with the board, but there's nothing in here that actually talks about working with the community over what's going to go in place. And I get it. A lot of people have made submissions to the petition and you've got a lot of information from it. But it does seem to me that fairly fundamental would be a process around engaging the community on this as well. But at the end of the day, I do think hopefully this is a lesson to us as a community board about how we engage and how we consult our communities over things that are important. So I think you can see clearly from the petition and the comments that have been made in the media, this is a significant issue in the community and we should treat these issues as such.
All right. Now, unless anybody really wants to speak to it, and I think I can see that Joe does, we only have a short period of time before the end of the meeting.
Yeah, given this was a community-built playground to start with, the community really need to see something returned. It's the same with QE2. A lot of community input went into QE2, and a lot of the community feel aggrieved that we actually lost that facility, and this is a similar thing to that. With the use of the playground, you know, it caters for school groups at the end of the year coming down. Skate Jam is held there, end of year functions with families and big sports groups. Concerts are held there. I love Brighton, so there's a lot of events that are there, and I really, really support getting some extra funding, additional funding, any way we can, even if we have to use some of the better off funding to actually try and improve this playground.
We've had 3 speakers in favour, so I'll put the motion now. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carry.
I'll resume my seat.
Yeah, and Alex, you can receipt. So finally, we have the community board area report, item 21, and then the members exchange. But we're going to have to. You can take the report as read. Chris, is there anything you want to draw our attention to?
Just thanks for the team. It's a really good report.
Yanni, do you have a question?
I just
I've just seen your note. Sorry, you have a you would like an update about
just got some
happy to have
resolutions in or
So just to clarify through you, Chair, that improving Bromley's Road was answered at the last meeting, and staff are working to come back to the board May, June to provide them with an update.
Sorry, I'm asking for an update to go to all the people that have made submissions that have come to 2 community meetings and have been on a working party. So I'm just really keen that the community get updated as we've seen with we are going to be updated, and we will ask when we update it that information also goes to the community.
Because at the moment, they don't have any information to give us or them.
But a lot of people are coming and making submissions to the LTP at the moment, and they've got no idea about the status of this project.
Well, neither do we.
We do, because we know it's been delayed and we know it's been value engineered, and we know that we've got a revised timeframe for when it's going out. It should have been consulted on like 2 months ago. That was what the expectation was for the last. So letting people know that there's a delay, because we know there's a delay.
Oh, no, I wasn't entirely sure what you meant. I think that's fair enough that we ask that those people are informed that there is a delay. However, will be, and that they're informed that we will be briefed in May, June.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
So I'd be happy to, if Jackie is, I'm happy to add that to the resolution.
Just a clarification, please, Mr. Chair, which part of the report relates to the Bromley roads, just so I can link it?
Yeah, it was, I assumed that there was something in the area report that
It's the board plan, but.
So I've just had a squiz through of the updates and it's not in
Do
there.
you want me to do it in the elected members exchange? I mean, I just assume that it's part of the board plan which gets reported on through the area report, but I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, I mean, technically it is referred to the plan.
We'll make.
Yeah, so we will add that. So that the community board requests staff to update community on the progress of the draft plan project with update timeframes for consultation, decision making and construction.
As on page 114 as well.
Yeah. Regarding improving Bromley. I'm just happy to add that. So that's just an amendment by agreement to the resolution. Right. Are you happy to, Yanni's moving that? Yeah, and I'll second it. Oh no, me and Jackie moved it. Sorry. Me and Jackie moved it. So it's the motion will now be put. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against. Carried. All right. Thank you very much for the work that has gone into that as well. And the final thing is information exchange, but we don't actually have time for it because staff need to have.
Before we finish this meeting.
Before we finish the meeting.
Yeah. I'm just a bit concerned. This is the second meeting in a row on a Monday night that has gone well past 6:30, and that is not okay for staff. And this is the second meeting in a row that I've missed my 7 o'clock class because our meeting has gone over time. Is it possible to dial back our meeting start time? Because when I put my options in, there was, I complied with what everybody else wanted, knowing that I had a 7 o'clock and I was assured we'd finish at 6:30. So I'm putting it to you guys and staff, is it not possible to dial our meeting time start back?
It would have to, it
Or go
is,
back to fortnightly.
it is something that we could consider. We would have to change our meeting time, we'd have to do it by resolution.
I just want to raise it. It's like I invest money to go to these classes and it's the second time.
Yeah, well, I think that.
You're a great cheater.
No, it's all good. It is, obviously we've had two reasonably difficult meetings to deal with. And we have done reasonably well not to go around circles, but it may help us if we started earlier. So I think it's something that we should consider discussing. So thank you, members, and thanks for raising that, Jackie. If you'd like to join me in our closing karakia. Kia tau, te rangi Māori e, o te rangi e tu iho nei, o Papatuānuku e tapu tōnei, o te taio e awhi nei, ke runga i a tātou. Tihei.